couple of quick announcements and a reminder that we are recording. Last month's resolution on the Lighthouse link passed with 40 votes in favor. 1 member abstained, 1 member not voting due to conflict. So there were 0 people opposed, which is great. And I'm already hearing buzz in the community. People are reaching out to elected officials. And yeah, who knows? Hopefully we'll get somewhere on this initiative. And if we do, I will bring any updates back to the committee. I have not yet heard any announcements from the folks at the Parks Department Revenue Division, so there's no announcement yet on the Fort Tryon Park Cafe concession. I believe an announcement is imminent. So hopefully by our next meeting, we should have some news. I was hoping to be able to make an announcement this evening. Alas, not yet. We were going to have a brief presentation from the Parks Department on repairs to the pathway and bench placement in Fort Washington Park in the 170s. The Parks Department asked if they could please be moved to March because they might be adding a block to that project. So I'm always in favor of more improvements in the park. So I'm looking forward to hearing about more about that at our March 8th meeting.
And which park was that for again? One more time. Sorry, Liz.
Fort Washington Park.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. And yesterday, I got an email from somebody at EDC about the IRPAC, which, give me a second, stands for the Immigration something and Performing Immigration Research and Performing Arts Center, which is going to be going into the the Eliza housing project on the site of the Inwood Library. They asked if they could give a brief presentation announcement this evening. And then this morning they said, actually, we'd like to come in March and give a fuller presentation. Because when they said, do you have room on the agenda for your meeting in February? I said, sure. But since you're talking about a short presentation and it may be that people have questions, we may need for you to come back in March. And then he replied back and said, maybe it's just better if I come in March. So that made a lot of sense to me. Sorry for all of the last minute changes. I try to be flexible and accommodating. And I think, we'll just have a better quality presentation if there's a little bit more notice. And also if I can let the public know this is what's going to be on the agenda. And if this is something that is interesting to you or you care about, then you should show up to that meeting. So that is pretty much it for announcements. Sally, what you got? Do you have a question? Sally?
Sally's hand down. Barbara Fraser up.
Okay. Barbara.
Yeah, you mentioned this group, the Immigration Performing Arts, that they have somehow been selected to be in the performing space at the Eliza. Could you post?
No. That is not what I said. What I said was that it's not a they that's been selected. It's an Immigrant Research and Performing Arts Center. It isn't a they that has been selected yet. It's a proposed project which has been identified, which will be part of that development, and that's always been part of the proposed project. And they were going to make an announcement about that and give a presentation. I have no idea what is the announcement they were going to make. So I really don't, this is not a discussion item. This is me telling you they were going to come and make an announcement,
fine.
And they're not.
can we, when we get this out to the public, because I think the public will want to come to the meeting, can
Yes.
we get some sort of background posted and some board of directors posted in terms of, so the public knows what to come to?
What do you mean board of directors, Barbara?
Well, it's an organization now, right? Or some sort
No.
of leaders?
No, it is a,
Well, who will represent the proposal?
EDC will make an announcement about the proposed project.
Okay, so EDC
At no
is coming.
point did I state that there was an organization representing. So
Okay.
really, I know absolutely nothing about what they are going to tell us. And clearly they have piqued your curiosity. And as your attendance at this committee is excellent, I encourage you to attend.
Fine,
That's really-
okay, so it's EDC's proposal. Okay, so
Yes.
I put it out that way, okay, because many people will be interested in this.
Yes, I'm sure they will. Next up, Sally, are you back? You had a question?
Yeah, I have, it looks like I have an unstable internet connection, so I might have to get off and log back in on my phone.
Okay,
I just want to note, if you can hear me,
yes.
I just wanted to note
Now we can't hear you.
on the
Nope.
Fort Tryon concession until, okay, what about now?
Okay, we can hear you.
It looks like we might not have an announcement on the Fort Tryon Park concession until at least March, because the Franchise and Concession Review Commission has not met in January and February, and I think they have.
Okay,
to meet.
I'm gonna stop you there. So the Franchise, Concession and Review Commission is a separate process. Here's how this information is going to flow. Right now, the Parks Department is in conversation with the person or persons who were the top bidders, and they are working on crafting an agreement. I do not know who that party is. Once that agreement has been agreed to, the Parks Department will have the green light to make an announcement as to the name of the party. Once that happens, there will be a discussion at the FCRC at which public input is welcome. Again, this is not a discussion item. This is me just telling everybody that no news is no news. And we will hear from the Parks Department as soon as the Parks Department is able to share this information. And after that happens is when the FCRC will meet. So the fact that the FCRC hasn't met yet or isn't going to meet until whatever is not relevant, because it's not an FCRC announcement that we're waiting for. It is an announcement from the Parks Revenue Division. This is literally the same announcement I've been making for a couple of months. This is like a nothing burger for the minutes. The minutes for this item should read, no news yet. Any other questions? Fantastic. Moving on. I would like to hear reports from our representatives from cultural and Friends of Parks organizations. You get to speak in the order in which you raise your hands. And first up is Nydia Leva Gutierrez from NOMA.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Committee Chair Liz Redder. I would just like to share a few items. Washington Heights and Inwood artists, today is the deadline to submit artwork for our 13th annual Women in the Heights exhibition, curated by Andrea Arroyo. There are a few hours left to apply online, and if you are interested, please visit our website at nomanyc.org. It is also the time for CB12 artists to prepare applications for small grants for individual artists. These are awards of $2,500 to $5,000 in various disciplines of art. May 9th is a deadline for our next cycle. Yesterday was the first cycle, which closed. Again, please visit our website at nomanyc.org for info. The 20th Uptown Art Stroll poster contest is underway. Washington Heights Inwood artists enter by March 27th for your chance to win the grand prize of $1,250. There's a second prize, $500. A third prize is for $250, and the online application can be found at artstroll.com. I'll put all of this in the chat. Finally, we invite everyone. I don't think there's a chat. We invite everyone to become a NOMA member. Sign up to receive our weekly newsletter. Submit your arts and cultural events to our online calendar. We will promote them. And please see our studios at 4140 available for rent from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Again, visit us at nomanyc.org for details. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow, that was perfect timing. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if folks could please send just a quick blurb to me and to Nobles. That way we can drop them into the minutes, and it just makes everybody's life a lot easier. Short summary with the who, what, where, when, why. My email is lizitter.cb12m@gmail.com, and Nobles' email is
Nobles, like Barnes and Noble with an S, and my name right there, 1983@gmail.com.
fantastic. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Alexander Campos from the Hispanic Society Museum.
Good evening, everyone. And once again, that's nobles1983@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Thank you. Hispanic Society. Well, I want to first of all say we had a presentation with CB12 Land Use last week regarding our AD accessibility plans toward the main building. They were favorably received by the committee, and a referendum to support our efforts to renovate the outside to get to the inside from our terraces is it's underfoot, I guess, on the way. So very grateful for Land Use to supporting our plans. Again, all this has to do with accessibility into the buildings. As you know, we're a multi-layered space floor place, and so we need to figure out how to get people in. Just to let you know, upcoming exhibitions, we have Nuestra Casa, Rediscovering the Treasures of the Hispanic Society. It opens to the public on February 17th. The exhibition will be open until April 17th. It will be open Thursday to Sunday, noon to 6 p.m., free of charge. And the exhibition features some of our favorites, Velasquez, Goya's, El Greco, as well as some very interesting work from Latin America, such as Pancho Fierro, Campeche, Arrieta. It's a great exhibition featuring 50 works of our collection as their home for a short visit before they go back on the road during our renovation period. We also going to have two outdoor projects, one by artist Elena Deverero in conjunction with Women's International Day on March 8th. She's created these two flags that will be hanging from our flag poles inside on the terrace of Audubon Terrace. And that opens again March 8th. And then we'll be doing a project with Andrea Arroyo with the museum, with the Morris Jamel Mansion Museum and NOMA. It's a collaboration. She'll be presenting work in 3 sites, hopefully. And that's going to run roughly from April 6th to June 5th. And we are showing her solidarity banners on the terrace. And the last thing I want to mention is we will have a concert. Of course, all our programs are free of charge. Our concert series for 2022 will be flamenco. And the first one, because of COVID, will be virtual. It'll be the kickoff concert and lecture, and it'll be virtual in March, scheduled for March. And then we plan to have an on-site April, May, June flamenco performances. So all to do with COVID regulations.
Cool. Thank you so much. And you'll send that to Nobles, right?
Exactly.
Outstanding. Appreciate it. Next up, Shiloh Holly from the Morris Jamel Mansion.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I wanted to make a few announcements regarding upcoming program at the mansion. This weekend, February 12th and 13th, we have our Con Ed Family Day. We have Victorian Valentine kits available for pickup 1 to 4 p.m. on both days. And next week, we are celebrating with the New York Historical Society on President's Day, a living history program at home, talking about Hercules, who was a chef enslaved by America's first president, George Washington. You can register through the New York Historical Society for that program. It's at noon on February 21st. This month, we're also releasing a new self-guided tour option. It's called the Northup Experience, which features a look at the mansion from the perspective of Anne Northup and her children. They were the family of 12 Years a Slave author Solomon Northup, and worked at the mansion for Eliza for about 2 years in the 1840s. So that's a free add-on option for our self-guided visitors. Our new exhibition has opened, featuring the work of local artist Rose Deller. It's a part of our Surroundings pop-up series. The exhibition is called History Now, and it features a selection of photography of the Jamel Terrace Historic District, both from 1900 and then today, 2021. And that is available on view Friday through Sunday, 11 to 5.
Yes.
And then lastly,
Yes, it is. Hi, good, thank you.
Alex, I don't think you're on mute.
Can you hold on 1 second, please? Can you hold on 1 second? Can you hold on 1 second?
Alex, can you mute yourself, please?
Okay, so a part of that exhibition series, we have a public program coming up on Saturday, March 12th. It's a community open house and a workshop with Rose in the garden from 2 to 3. All this information and more can be found at our website, morrisjamel.org.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Next, we've got Rachel Citron from Row, New York.
Hi, good evening. Great to see you all. Just a quick announcement. So our boathouse, Row New York's boathouse at Sherman Creek, we're hoping to break ground on that late spring, early summer. And as part of the new boathouse opening, we are required to remove the old boathouse, the Peter J. Sharp boathouse. So we have been getting all the permits from various agencies to enable the removal of the old boathouse. And I just wanted to let you guys know that that will be happening, is due to happen this spring. So unfortunately, that's a beautiful structure. It will be leaving the neighborhood, and just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Thank you. Quick question about that. That just seems like sort of a fun potential community event. Is that open to the? I mean, it's such an unusual thing.
That's an interesting idea.
Watch a boathouse be
structure
to be floated away, tugged away. I don't know. You got dolphins swimming it away, whatever. It just would be really interesting, and that feels like possibly an interesting opportunity for some public programming to learn more about the site, more about rowing.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I hadn't thought about that yet. It sounds like a great idea. I have no idea. We're not in control over what day it goes away. And it's like a complicated service that's taking it away. But I'll see if we can do it on a weekend where people might be able to gather. I think that's a great idea. I will look into that.
Could be fun.
Yeah, it could be a lot of fun. Yeah.
I've never seen a boathouse float away. So
I'm hoping it will move. So
yeah.
It might be a short gathering if something goes wrong. One of the lawyers asked me today, like, what happens if it falls into the river? Hopefully it'll all go smoothly. Yes, but I'll look into that. That's a great idea, Liz. Thanks for suggesting it.
Perhaps you want to reach out to the local religious community and we can all pray on it and hope it goes well. Well, anyway, and
then just for those of you who are unaware of the whole history of the boathouse, the reason it's not used anymore because it's sinking. It's not structurally sound. Whomever's in charge of the river has just made it clear that in order to have a new boathouse, we're responsible for removing the old one.
Got it. There's a question in the chat from Ira Gershenhorn, who asks, where does the old Peter J. Sharp boathouse go?
Oh, okay. So it's my understanding that it's being moved to Boston Harbor. where the current, in terms of the river, won't beat it up as much as the Harlem River is beating it up, and the folks taking it away are hopeful that it can stand in a different body of water.
Cool.
So as soon as I get pictures of it and if it's new surroundings, I'll definitely share.
Perhaps you should serve tea.
Great idea.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have Frances Hall.
Hi, everybody. I am here tonight representing the Inwood Canoe Club, so we'll just keep the boat party going. I'll definitely be out there to see the Row New York Boathouse moved when that happens, if it's a public event. And over in the Hudson, our boathouse remains active during the winter. So even though it's freezing right now, we still have folks on site every day. Members are out paddling, and we're doing maintenance, including storm preparation, ice and snow removal, and maintaining our fleet. Our big fleet project that we've got going as soon as air temperatures rise is we're going to resume some work on 2 of the century-old wooden canoes in our fleet. So this past November, several of our members brought these 2 historic boats up to the Wooden Boat School at the Hudson River Maritime Museum in Kingston and spent a week beginning the process of making them seaworthy again. They just kind of been rotting in the boathouse for a while, and we are really looking forward to making them nice and shiny and patched up and showing them off on the river and in the boathouse. A good update that we have that's really exciting. So in addition to the programs that Inwood Canoe Club offers during the summer, Uptown Paddling Incorporated, which is a nonprofit affiliated with ICC, is making plans to offer a course for local teens in competitive team paddling this summer. So Uptown Paddling is in communication with several youth programs in Inwood and Washington Heights, and the objective is to field a team in some of the interclub competitions this summer. So if anyone on this call has a group that's interested in participating and or supplying grant funding, our contact for Uptown Paddling is uptownpaddling@gmail.com. And finally, on a fun note, if you haven't been down to the river recently, we recommend that you keep your eyes out for some wildlife once you're down there. We've had some great sightings recently of bald eagles, bufflehead ducks, and we've also spotted a harbor seal a couple times. TBD whether it's our Inwood celebrity seal, Sealy, but we're waiting to get a better look at his tags, and we'll let you know.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. That bald eagle that flies along the coast near your dock, I see it actually from my street a bunch. Like, is that a family? Like, is that normal for this area, a bald eagle?
Yeah, so right now is actually the peak time for bald eagle migration along the Hudson. So you'll probably see a lot. I mean, they're around year round, but right now February is really when they're coming through en masse. So definitely keep your eyes out, particularly on the Jersey side of the river.
Nice.
But okay. I know that, and I'm sure Jennifer Hoppe could speak to this more, but I know that there was a bald eagle like restoration project in Inwood Hill Park some years ago, and that some of that flock is still around.
Cool, thank you.
Cool, thank you so much. Rachel, did you have your hand up for something else, or did I forget to lower your hand? Okay.
Nope, forgot to lower my hand. I'm done. Thank
Cool.
you.
No worries. Thanks so much. Next up, we have Rosa Yolanda Pineda from Conectémonos.
Yeah, I'm muting myself. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all. Thank you, Liz, for the opportunity. I am Dr. Rosa Yolanda Pineda, longtime community resident from Conectémonos, and our mission is to repurpose and bring program to open and green spaces in Washington Heights. We have identified 3 spaces, 2 of which are under the Parks Department, the West 186th Street basketball court, and the wonderful challenging area from West 188 and Astor Avenue to 193rd and Fort George Hill. The 3rd space is under the jurisdiction of the New York City Department of Education, and that is our future urban farm, Conuco in Spanish, and that is behind the George Washington Educational Campus. We have been running SYP virtually and hybrid. I don't know if you are aware, whether or not you are aware that for the first time the SYP was extended.
We just lost you. Hello? Hello? Okay. I'm going to assume Conectémonos has some connectivity problems, and I will bring her back in when she's able to reconnect. I don't see any more hands, but I had heard by email from Paul Kittis yesterday that he had an announcement. Oh, wait, we got Rosa Yolanda back. Okay.
I'm done. I meant to lower my hand. I am complete. I am done. Thank you.
Okay, but we missed like a part of your announcement.
Oh,
We missed like the last 30 seconds. We totally lost your
okay, so I was saying that the Summer Youth Employment Program was extended for 17 weeks from
Great.
November to March, and that our young people, 16 of them are here, and that through that program, we've been doing nutrition, gardening with the Washington Heights Food Council, supporting their trails with Chris, and cleaning around the Juan Bosch Plaza.
Great.
And we are starting the process of preparing for the summer because we want to bring movie nights to the sides of Broadway. And I will come back with more details. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I encourage you to continue to work with Jennifer on permitting. I know that there are some areas that are better than others. I love that the way that you are activating parks usage and doing just incredible community engagement and youth engagement. So I look forward to all that you're doing and more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, we've got Paul Kittis. Paul? Okay, Paul.
Yes.
Start talking, you're unmuted.
Urban Park Rangers are doing twice a month events at the water tower in Highbridge Park. I'll be giving the tour down Coogan's Bluff, where I became a site archaeologist from the Highbridge pool down to 155th Street. Very exciting. I'll be doing it. I'm permitted and licensed in New York to do this. And I'll start this weekend under the tutelage. I'll be an adjunct to the Urban Park Rangers.
Cool.
Very cool.
That's fantastic. I look forward to checking out your tour, and probably when the weather's a little bit better, not gonna lie.
Right.
Spring.
Oh, it's going to be great this weekend, though.
It's going to be 60 degrees this weekend.
I'm not gonna be here this weekend.
Oh. Easy to get that. Thank you, Liz.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your expertise and your participation. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say there.
I'll be back.
Great. See a hand up from the panelists. Jennifer, you're actually going to be next.
Question for you, Chairman,
Yes.
Chairwoman, sorry. Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa is here. I didn't know if there was a place in the agenda. I didn't get an agenda, so I didn't know
Yeah,
if you
she's
wanted
on the agenda. She is
Oh,
like,
she
okay. She is her own
didn't
agenda
receive today's
item.
agenda. Okay, I did not receive today's agenda.
Oh,
thank
so
you.
sorry.
Sorry,
So
Paula, I should have said this earlier.
No worries. So the roadmap for this evening's meeting is seeing no additional people to speak on this agenda item other than Jennifer. I'm going to let her just roll into her presentation. And then when she's finished with that, she's got announcements, and then she'll have her parks update. And then when we're done with that, we'll go to the councilwoman.
Thank you for the clarification.
You bet. Sorry for not being announcing the agenda up front for those who didn't get it. Jennifer, before I recognize you, I just want to say in the attendees list, we have 2 people named Ricardo Miranda. And while it's certainly possible that 2 people have the same name, my guess is one of the Ricardos Miranda is really Ricardo Miranda, and another person is someone with whom he shared the link, which is fine, but it's just, I like to be able to address people by name. So if whoever isn't Ricardo Miranda could just change their name, toggle the setting to change their name so that we know who's in the meeting, we can have more accurate attendance records. And if you wind up asking a question that needs subsequent follow-up, we know how to get in touch with you.
Here I was putting 2X in the meeting minutes.
I mean, it might be 2X. Sometimes people will sign on from 2 devices, but last meeting we had like 5 people with the same name, and I later came to realize it was one person who had said, "Hey, I'm going to this meeting. Here's the link," not realizing that each of the links is personalized to the person who registers. So sorry for that little bit of IT housekeeping, and without further ado, Jennifer Hoppe.
Great, thank you, Chairwoman Ritter. Just at Inwood Hill Park, there is a planned trail day with the Parks Department Stewardship Division. It's full, however. That said, we are actively recruiting for ongoing trail maintainers. So if you have a scout troop, or if you're just an individual who would like to contribute to the public's enjoyment of the forest as well as the forest's health, you can go to nyc.gov/parks and under stewardship find out more about how to become involved in natural areas maintenance. We are also, Yolanda mentioned the Parks Department's partner at Highbridge, New York City Mountain Biking Association, has the second Saturday's trail work party every second Saturday. It's a great thing if you have youth in your life to bring them. You work on the mountain biking trail maintenance, Manhattan's only mountain biking trail, and bikes are provided, and you can get a little clinic on how to ride them in the course. So it's a fun thing. It's 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. the second Saturday of every month. As Paul mentioned, New York City Parks, Urban Park Rangers are having another tour of the Highbridge Water Tower this Saturday. It is going to be 60 degrees. The water tower can be accessed from West 174th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, and you walk east. You see the tower, you walk to it. Ideally you register, but I don't think the Rangers will turn anybody away, but you may end up having to wait a bit. And it's quite fun. Somebody mentioned the Bald Eagles. There's a Bald Eagle Watch Saturday, February 19th, 9 a.m. at Payson Center on Dyckman Street, next to the Payson Playground, right near Payson Avenue. And the Rangers will show you the best observation spots for seeing eagles, nobles, and family.
Yeah,
maybe.
I kind of bootleg it and I go to Chittenden. But I'll definitely check that out. Thank you.
But if you want to get a hike in, there's also a winter birds workshop with the Urban Park Rangers on Sunday, February 20th. If you're not a morning person, that's at 1 p.m. During the winter break, there are 2 Kids Week programs at Payson Center, which is on Dyckman Street at roughly Henshaw, 1 p.m. On Friday, the 25th. And then Tuesday, the 22nd, nature exploration for kids. That's 1 p.m. at Seaman and Isham. All that can be found on the Parks Department's website. I also wanted to mention, a lot of people tried to get a slot, and because of high demand, weren't unable to be accommodated. We had the winter tree workshop virtually, the Fort Tryon Park Trust and the Parks Department this past weekend. It's going to be up on the Fort Tryon Park Trust website, recurring walks and talks. There are a whole bunch of tree resources, guides, downloadable worksheets you can do with your kids or with yourself to learn more about the abundant natural areas we have uptown. Some announcements. We have a new commissioner. Sue Donahue is fabulous. She's most recently been the head of the Prospect Park Alliance, the public-private partnership with the Parks Department on the care of those 580 acres. Prior to that, she was an assistant commissioner at the Parks Department. She led our Plan YC initiative, which, as many people uptown remember, is what included the High Bridge itself and the completion of Fort Washington Park. So lots of capital investment in these key open space destinations. She's great. Sue is fabulous, and I'm really excited for her to be in leadership. And the other good news is Mayor Adams appointed Iris Rodriguez Rosa, who's currently the Bronx Parks Commissioner, to be our first deputy commissioner. And she's a bridge builder. She is accessible. She's resourceful. She's resilient. And so the two of those women in leadership of the Parks Department, I think, is going to be a real winning combination. I want to give most of my time to the council member, because that's who everyone wants to hear from, I'm sure. We didn't have a leptospirosis outbreak up here, but they did in dog runs in Brooklyn. The Department of Health has issued some guidelines for people who have dogs. So if you go on nyc.gov, you can find those downloadables and guidelines, or your vet can help you. Somewhat related, but not really. The Fort Tryon Park Dog Run will be closing for some repairs. As many of you know, the run is over 20 years old. It's never received capital funding. And particularly with the heavy rains that we've been getting, the surface is eroded considerably. We had that massive sinkhole, and we've had silt buildup, which makes it easy for dogs to jump out at the eastern end. So the Fort Tryon Park Trust is allocating private funding for that, and community members have stepped in to provide some funding for repairing the fencing. So that work is probably going to start in the next week and a half and last 3 to 4 months. So there will be some service interruptions. We mentioned the new leaf announcement later this month. And I just also wanted to announce that Northern Manhattan Parks participated in the Deputy Mayor Swarm on Inwood and Fort Washington portions of Uptown. I don't know if people saw, but there was an infusion of city employees working to repair commercial districts, park gateways, and we were able to mobilize the sizable crew in Gorman Park to start to clear out some of the dumping and that's occurred there. And our forestry division is going to follow up now that there's better access to go in and remove some fallen trees. And later this spring, early summer, parks contractor is going to go in to fix the retaining wall there. So we are making some, we're advancing some of the improvements in this first phase of Gorman Park reclamation. I'll skip capital projects unless anybody has a specific question on one. Because again,
yes, actually, there's a question in the Q&A from, excuse me, from Adam Fran that says, hi, is there an update of the closing dates for the Greenway repair north of the lighthouse? Thanks.
So Adam, that's tied in. There are 4 sites for that retaining wall contract that area is a part of. It's the Fort Washington Greenway. It's the Bennett Avenue rock face where we had the rock slide. And the eastern side of Fort Tryon Park. It's St. Nicholas Park, which is outside of Community Board 12, and Gorman. So those 4 sites. So right now the contractor, because the contractor was trying to pull permits from the State Department of Transportation, I guess for some of the roadway closures for accessing that narrow Greenway. It's sort of, they've prioritized St. Nick because they didn't want to just stand around waiting while they're waiting for that permit. So it's shifting. So I would imagine it's going to be later in the year, probably in the warmer months. But I don't know if you heard or attended a prior meeting. The closure is probably only going to be 1 month. The contractor thinks that he can do the work south of the 181st Street pedestrian bridge, sort of isolate it. And that way we don't have to close from 158th up to Dykeman Street. So that'll be great. So probably closure for just 1 month, and just that 1 mile will be on street. But as the 3 sites and the permitting for them advance, because Gorman is also tied up with Department of Buildings permits, we'll send communications to the community board so people can have access to that information.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, one other announcement, because Rose is on the call.
Mhm.
In the near term, Parks Department, thanks to Rose's advocacy and this committee's advocacy and the council's generosity, we will be redoing the 86th Street Courts site. I know there was a lot of public support for making it more not just basketball, but for community gathering, for Rose's public programs, for other community events, some shade structures, sitting areas. It will likely be at the end of this month. So again, once the Capital Division locks in that date, and we make sure it works with Rosa and Conectémonos, we'll broadcast it to the community board so they can.
Outstanding. And what's the approximate length of time for that project?
Well, design and public review is usually 12 months, and procurement is 9 to 12 months. And then construction is usually 12 months. It will be on the Parks Department's capital tracker. If you're not familiar with that, people who are listening in, all of the capital projects, we have about 40 that are going on in Northern Manhattan Parks that are in various stages, some recently complete, some in design, some in procurement. You can see their progress.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to recognize Steve, Simon, who had his hand up first.
Yeah, I just want to add, slightly modify what Jennifer just said. We're going to try to fit in that scope meeting for the 186th Street basketball court in February, but it may carry over into early March. But we'll be in contact with Rosa and with the community board to make sure that everyone knows about the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Nobles, you had a question.
Thanks, Chair. Hey, Jen, just a quick question for you around like park licensing for get-togethers and stuff as the springtime comes and everything. Just wanted to see, one, since COVID, and we've been through this now for 2 years, knowing there's going to be a lot more people, what kind of things has the New York Parks Department done to make sure not only you remain equitable in the handing out of those licenses, but also the timely and transparency-ness of doing so? Thank you.
So related to ball fields or to special events?
Can we say both? Because I'd like to know the difference between the two, to be quite honest.
Sure. So if you go on the Parks Department's website, you can request a facility permit for like a basketball court or for baseball fields for the season. Generally, if there's an established league, like the Inwood Little League, for instance, they might get, they'll want to continue their program that they've always offered. So I believe the permit office sort of gives them right of first refusal, unless there've been past violations. I can find out more from that. I'm not the recreation division that handles that, but then there's a Manhattan Special Events Office. If you want to have your family's reunion, or you're looking to have, say, your kid's birthday party, or you know, what are the other types of things people have?
Baby shower.
Baby shower.
Not
sure,
that we're doing anything here.
those types of things. Again, you do so on the Parks Department's website. Usually it's first come, first serve. So the earlier you know your preferred date, the earlier you should apply. Then if you're looking, those are sort of the standard. Let's say you're looking to have, if there's like a promotional component to it, anything along those lines, then citywide special events will get involved. There's a fee if you're going to have branding, if there's a marketing element, because it's on the public's land.
Can I just jump in here? I will also say that as a person who has applied for Parks Department permits for family events and such like that, it helps if you are as specific as possible in indicating the time and the place. Because if you say, I want to have a picnic with 25 people on the Billings lawn at noon on Saturday, March 12th, if somebody else already booked that space for their family event, then the answer is going to be no. And that's it. And you've paid your $25 whether application fee, whether you get the space or not. But if you say, ideally, I would like it in this place at this time, but if it turns out that's not available, it would be okay to have it on this other date, or to have it on Abby's lawn or in this other place. And then the special events people can say, well, your first choice isn't available, but we can do this other time or this other location in the park. And the more specific you are and the more flexible you are, the more likely you are to get something that meets your needs.
They'll actually let you know if there's a conflict with your whatever your first choice is, and say, hey, do you want to move it to this site? Or, you know, somebody already has the permit for that, or that'll be under construction, or there's a movie shoot permitted for then. Or it's been so heavily used, we're only permitting it every other weekend, or what have you, you know. But there are thousands of permit applications for Manhattan. So sometimes there is a delay. Yeah. Was there a specific project or program that someone's waiting for feedback on?
No, I was just asking because I know it comes up every springtime and, like, you know, subsequently through our special sessions through the summer. So it was good for my edification to at least know the breakdown, because I didn't know there was multiple different places to apply for one. And thank you for that. Yeah.
There's one. It depends on what there's one place to apply, but there are different things that you apply for. So ball field permits is a different application.
That's recreation,
and therefore a different place than just, you know, people applying for a permit for their wedding photography or their family picnic or their birthday party.
Cool.
But it's all on the website. It's very easily negotiable. I see Steve has a hand up.
I have one important point to add. When you're applying for a special events permit, you must apply at least 21 days in advance. And even that cuts it really short. So the earlier you can apply, the better. You need to give us, because of what Jennifer just said, because we have thousands of applications, we need as much time as possible to sort through them and process them. And we often find that people are applying almost at the last minute, 1 week ahead of time. They want to book a birthday party for their 7-year-old kid, and it's it's awful that to turn them down because they missed the deadline. So really, we got to get the word out. It's at least 21 days, and you're better off 2 months ahead of time if you can.
That's really good to know. Thank you.
Super. Okay, thank you so much. Fantastic. All right. Well, without further ado, we go to our, I think, main event of the evening, Councilwoman De La Rosa, and a conversation about your vision and priorities for our parks, and getting some thinking on the committees and the board's priorities for our parks. I know that you are not a stranger to this at all, partly because you're a very long time resident of the community who has been paying attention to this stuff, and also because you were working for the previous council member, and responsible for shepherding a lot of projects, both through PB and through participatory budgeting and through the capital process. I imagine you are familiar with our most recent capital budget rankings, expense priorities, and operating expense priorities and capital project ranking priorities. I would be eager to hear, what your vision as our councilwoman is for parks, open spaces, waterfront, and recreation in Community Board 12.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, Liz, and to all the Community Board 12 members for welcoming me here. I'm excited to have this conversation. I hope that it's interactive and that we can discuss sort of what the board sees as priorities, but also some of the vision. As Liz mentioned, I've been around for a little while, and I kind of know what's happening in our community, in our parks, but it is always important to hear directly from you all, because you're the front lines of what happens in our community. And Kiana Diaz, who's on the call here, is my Deputy Chief of Staff for Legislation and Budget. You all are familiar with Kiana. She's an old face, but in a new role. And I'm excited that she'll be with me, helping to make the decisions and planning about our capital dollars. So I'm just gonna talk more broadly about some of the things that I've been thinking about, and I hope to hear from you about the things, your feedback. So, I mean, the way that I see my role as a city councilwoman in this process is looking at what we already have and trying to make the process for allocating funds more fair, more transparent. I know that we went through a grueling rezoning process, but from that process, one of the things that came out of it is multi-million-dollar investments, not only to our parks, but to our open spaces, to our cultural affairs component. And I see myself as a watchdog to make sure that this new administration is actually making those promises good on those promises, and that the money that has been allocated for our community is actually put in place in a timely fashion. In the same way, Liz mentioned participatory budgeting. When I was working for the council member, I helped lead the participatory budgeting process in its first years. There's also a lot of projects that have been put through the participatory budgeting process, and we need transparency to make sure that we know what's happened with those dollars, where they are, what's the status of that funding. My office has actually already asked the city council to put forth sort of a report on prior participatory budgeting projects. There is a glitch there in that, the finance division informed us that they do not track participatory budgeting as a separate entity. They just put it all under capital, but they are doing the work now of going back and making sure that the projects that were allocated to participatory budgeting can be tracked so that we can report back to the community. Some have asked if I will be participating in participatory budgeting, and I will, just not for this immediate cycle. The general assemblies for participatory budgeting were done in a 2 weeks timeframe, because we're all new council members, and they needed to get the process started so that it would be on time for the budget process to take place. And I thought that wasn't fair, to rush a process that would not engage our entire community in having their voice and the projects that they want to see coming forward. So we are starting the new cycle of PB in August. We will start it early so that we'll be on track for the fall. And so the community can have deep participation in that process, and also, frankly, get a clear sense for what projects have already been funded and done and which projects are left over. And in that same vein, yesterday I did have my sit down with parks, and yes, there are 41 projects in the pipeline, capital projects. There's a lot going on uptown. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of investment, and I'm very excited about these projects. And I know that Jen and Steve are both here and can chime in, but some of the things that I thought were so important to see on these lists that are kind of coming to fruition is clearly the nature center in Inwood Hill Park. I know that has been something that the community has been asking for so long. And, you know, it really took a hit during Hurricane Sandy. And here we are looking forward to the completion of the construction. The Ann Loftus Park, as you all know, is under construction right now. And I'm very excited about that. We have, through the rezoning as well, the Monsignor Kett Playground. There's a number of comfort stations that are coming in. One of the things that I want to focus on is the upkeep and maintenance of our parks. Steve and I had a long conversation yesterday about our pathway networks and the need to always have access for emergency vehicles and other personnel doing work and other things in the park, and for honestly for the community to be able to traverse the parks. So being able to put some funding into the upkeep and maintenance and safety of our parks is going to be a priority for me. Our recreational ball fields and basketball courts are all in the pipeline. Almost all of them are in the pipeline for either lighting or field repairs. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. We also had a long conversation about Gorman Park, which I hope to prioritize. It's going to be kind of a pet project. I think that it's important for us to get that done. So I will be prioritizing that in this budget. We also talked a little bit about, and I'm glad the committee was able to pass the resolution for the links to the Little Red Lighthouse. You know, it's a conversation that's happening all across the community. I've heard about it at least 3 times in separate meetings, and I'm supportive of that effort. Realizing that I can't fund it on my own with the city council funding, but that there are federal dollars that are in the pipeline with the infrastructure bill and other options for us to use the funding. So I'm excited to see that work come to fruition. And I'm also excited about the arts and cultural aspects that are coming into the community. As Liz mentioned earlier, the Immigrant Museum is coming. We're waiting to see what that turns out to be. But I think it's also important to create links to our local artists. We have a rich and vibrant local artistic community here. NOMA has done a great job at putting together the art stroll and other initiatives, but there is also, you know, local artists that need to be fed into those pipelines that exist. So I'm looking forward to doing that work. And then we also talked about the dog run yesterday a little bit, and I understand that right now it is in a state of disrepair. The Parks Department did, Jen and Steve did mention that it is vital to the safety of Fort Tryon Park, and I want to make sure that we are prioritizing that dog run. So we're going to be looking at that budget process as well, in the budget process as well. So, you know, overall, what we're trying to do is create a system where we're transparent about the funding that is in the pipeline, what is coming into our community through the Inwood rezoning, the ways in which we can use the dollars that are coming in to plan for sustainability in our community. There has been a lot of talk, and I know this is a little bit of a different conversation, but there's been a lot of talks about open streets and environmental aspects of the open spaces we have. And I'm very interested in seeing how we can connect on those conversations and make a plan for how we continue to invest in the gems that I consider to be our parks here uptown. We're so lucky that we have such great public spaces, as well as the waterfront, which, you know, we will see significant development around in the North Cove. The work that the New York Restoration Project and Raul, New York are doing at the Sherman Creek and down the Harlem River Drive. And there is also some work that I think is very important that is happening with retaining walls in our community. because of the environmental sort of deterioration of these spaces. It is, I think, critical that we take care of the issues of retaining walls in our community, so we don't see people's lives jeopardized by a collapse or a partial collapse as we've seen in the past. So, there's a lot going on. I'm excited to take on this work with all of you. One of the things that my office is doing just on a bigger scale is that we are exploring the possibility of creating a strategic plan for Northern Manhattan that will guide the work of our office. I think that one of the things that happens sometimes in government is we get bogged down with putting out the literal fires of the everyday and we forget to plan going forward. So I look forward to ushering in a co-governance model that includes the creation of smaller committees to take part in that planning, as well as working with the community board, because you already have committees formed that are leading in these different issues. So I'm excited about the work ahead, and I'm open to questions and happy to have a conversation about our parks and culture uptown.
Thank you so much. Before I take questions, I do want to just encourage the attendees, if they have questions, to raise their hands. I'm happy to recognize you. This is meant to be just kind of a back and forth conversation. We don't often get the opportunity to do that. And I want to let people know that while throwing questions in the Q&A is useful, when people view this meeting on live stream, they don't have the benefit of seeing what's in the Q&A. They only hear what people actually say out loud, which is why I read the questions from the Q&A. So it's better if folks who have questions raise their hands so that they can ask them, and then everybody can hear what they are. I do also want to beg everyone's indulgence for a brief trip down memory lane. I was doing a little cleaning in my office and I found this. This is the comprehensive Manhattan waterfront plan done by the borough president. Borough president, hold on a moment, call you back. Borough President Ruth Messenger in 1995. So I found these two paragraphs really interesting, or this paragraph really interesting. Community Board 12 has consistently placed a high priority on its parkland as a quality of life issue. Many of the parks in the community board are in dire need of rehabilitation. This was more true in 1995 than it is now, if you can believe. Similarly, many playgrounds are antiquated and need to be modernized. However, capital improvements without maintenance are virtually useless and a waste of money. To this end, Community Board 12 needs significant increases in parks operations and maintenance staff. So without citing particular things, I urge and beg you as our councilwoman to really push for increased funding in the general budget for just more of everything, more maintenance workers, more sanitation people, more tree pruners, more playground associates, more money to repave the 60 plus miles of pathways in our parks, not the glamorous, everybody loves a new playground and a new ball field and a new whatever where you can have a ribbon cutting and a photo opportunity, but it's the unglamorous everyday nuts and bolts stuff that people really rely on. And as important as capital funding is, it's not meaningful to have a new whatever if we don't have the staff to make it work. So that's my pitch.
I agree with you. I think that one of the things that having such big projects come in through the rezoning allows for me to do is to take a step back and look at everything that's on the board and then see how I can strategically invest in the maintenance aspect of it, which, you know, it is a privilege in a way because, you know, a lot of the big ticket items got taken care of in that way, while there are still some that are left, as Steve walked me through yesterday, but most of them have been taken care of. And so I will be focusing on the maintenance and budgeting issues for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I am going to, actually, before I hit the committee members, I'm going to take a quick lap through the public. We've got, you know what, Ira, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to just unmute you and let you ask your questions. Is Ira still here? Ah, yep, Ira, there you go. You are unmuted.
Okay, yeah, okay, now I'll ask the questions. You can hear me.
Yep.
Participatory budgeting in the past, I don't know what it is now, used $1 million. And I believe each council member has 5 million discretionary. Yeah, so in the past, there was an idea collection phase. Now, I know CD10 is not one of the current ones participating in cycle 11, but you're saying you will probably start cycle 12, I assume, next August.
Yes.
And so my questions are, will you be using the same website and format as is currently being used? I think it's a good one. It saves the expense of having community meetings, though, of course, you do need to have a computer to participate, or a laptop, or a phone, I suppose. I think it's good because you can get community feedback, whereas before, with the ideas being privately held in a small group, I did participate in participatory budgeting groups in many council districts. We spoke amongst ourselves about the ideas, but a broader conversation is probably beneficial. So any comments on that?
Well, thank you for the feedback. I think one of the things that we're doing right now is actually looking at the process as it is. COVID kind of changed a little bit of the ways that it was done in the past, because obviously with COVID, we couldn't get together and do the kind of science fair type events that were done in the past. So I'm going to be looking at what is there now, but I also want to add a component of like a deep canvas where we look at the sections of the district that aren't coming out, that aren't coming to the Zoom meetings, or aren't coming to the community board, and aren't coming to any of the public assemblies, and try to do good old fashioned door knocking and survey taking to make sure that we have at least some of the gaps that we've seen in the past taken care of. So we're looking at changing it up a bit. Also going to like the supermarkets and other places that people congregate or pass through to make sure that we're getting added feedback.
Have you thought about actually setting up periodically in the parks themselves?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Go to the playgrounds, go to the parks. I mean, you'll capture, if you do that, you will capture feedback from people who are using whatever facility as to what they would like to see that's different. By definition, you won't be capturing feedback from people who don't use those facilities as to why they don't use that facilities, but nothing is perfect.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Rosa Yolanda, you had a question. Okay, we will come back to her. So panelists, Daryl.
My hand was up there first, Chair. Sorry.
Your hand was up there first, but we
Yeah.
haven't heard from Daryl yet, so I'm going to recognize him first.
That's fine.
Oh, and I was going to defer to you as well, but I defer to
I
you.
appreciate it, Daryl. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, thank you. I was sorry, I'm looking for you, council member, so I can look at you.
Hi, can you see me?
So hi, good to see you. Last year, the Parks Committee went through a process to look to rename some parks, rec centers, other parks related facilities for individuals who've made significant contributions in the city. And this really is part of an effort to really recognize, especially women, people of color, and LGBTQI individuals. And I don't know what the new commissioner has in mind for this process, but I will say the last one, I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure, but I would think there was a bit of mishandling with it in terms of being able to express what we want as a community and then what the outcome actually was. So, I don't know if this falls under the Public Sightings Committee subcommittee that you're on, but it's just something to be aware of. And I hope we do get the opportunity to rename or name some wonderful areas of parks that can be meaningful to a number of different communities.
Yeah, that's a great feedback. I started to follow some of the conversations around also naming some facilities around indigenous, markers and others. I think it's a very interesting conversation for us to be having. I know that the co-namings of streets are under the oversight of the transportation department, and it goes through the Parks Committee in the City Council. We have a great Parks chair that I'm so excited to work with. His name is Shekhar Krishnan, and he's from Jackson Heights. And he is just amazing. I feel hopeful in his leadership that we will see these type of equitable changes. But I definitely think it's a timely conversation to have. And I'm fully supportive of us also engaging in that conversation here, the way that we co-name streets as well. I've been the council member now for a month and a few days, and we've already gotten at least three co-naming requests that will come through the community board. But I also am interested in looking at how we have more public input as to how streets are co-named in our own communities as well. And more capturing more of diversity, more of the cultural, and also the significance that is, the significance and the impact that these individuals have had specifically on our community, whether in our time or in the past. So I'm interested in having this conversation for sure, and I'll catch you offline to talk more.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Nobles.
Thank you very much. I was just finishing up the notes there. Well, thank you for coming to this board, to this committee meeting, council member. I know you're fresh off, starting there, so I appreciate it. And also, from your track record, I know that you do a great job with equitable legislation. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and not so much a question, because I know you're still learning everything, and to be quite honest, everything that you had just mentioned is like a perfect summary of like the last year and a half of community board work. So you're definitely got the right update with the things that you're focusing on right now. But as it comes to a lot of those projects, some of the other things we've been talking about the equitable nature of funding, in our neighborhood and throughout and such. I have seen, just being a part of this particular committee for the last 4 years or something at this point, there is a really good process, at least in my opinion, so far, of how funding is not only democratically doled out in all of the different processes that we've been talking about before. Also, it does, to pat, Steve Simon and Jennifer Hoppa on the back, it does seem to be very well spread throughout our community. That being said, you mentioned a lot of wins actually in the capital projects that we got through last year across our neighborhood. And one of the things that hasn't been so good over the years, even though, God bless, Councilman Rodriguez when it comes to his support for the parks, but getting the message out about some of those wins in disenfranchised areas, like going back to some of the fundamentals that Chair Loris Ritter was talking about, we need to get those out to people. Like, we are doing work in those areas. So from a messaging standpoint, I would implore you, even if it's not sexy stuff like a new playground and things, please, message to the folks that, there's so much work going on in all different areas of our community. Here's some things going on now that you might not really care about, but it's so important, like retaining walls. Don't want to talk about retaining walls. People want to talk about new basketball courts and parks, new playgrounds, but it's super important. So it's just a bit of advice, which I know you already know, but, definitely accentuate the wins that we get, because we do get a pretty fair good amount of them spread throughout. That's all.
Yeah, and we need some wins, right? Like, it's been a dark 2 years. We need some wins.
We need those wins.
There's some wins out there. But
We
I will
told them.
also ask for your help. There is so much that comes, just in our emails on a daily basis. And, we suffer from the bubble syndrome. Like, we know what's happening, so we kind of forget that everybody else needs to know what's happening too. If you can help us get the word out right now, for example, we have a sanitation survey that we are putting out in the community so that we can start to think about the way that we allocate sanitation dollars.
Great.
And even, waste baskets. We're getting new waste baskets. I want to know, tell me where to put them, right? So we're thinking of innovative ways to engage the community.
Cool.
But please help us. Let's be partners in this so that we can reach all of those areas that you have reaching. Like, I see it as like tentacles, right? Each of you has a network. Each of you has a group of people that you connect with. So help us get the word to them as well. And we'll be active on social media.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sally, who, there we go.
We have a stable internet connection, so if I cut out, I really apologize in advance.
Okay.
Thank you for coming to talk to us, and I really appreciate your comments about tracking the progress of past participatory budgeting approvals, because there are quite a few that have basically not moved from like even the first and second cycles of participatory budgeting. I wanted to say one thing, adding on to what Liz had said. I know in past years with participatory budgeting, there have been forms that have been filled out. So not only you guys showing up in the parks, but also distributing those forms to community groups so that we can also solicit input on your behalf. And then I had one question in terms of tracking of expense allocations. I wonder to what extent you plan to track allocations that have been given for certain environmental and parks initiatives of the city council to make sure that those funds are spent as promised and they're going to the right groups.
Yeah, we already started like a tracker for the rezoning dollars. My plan right now is we have lists going back to about 2018 for capital projects. The expense tracking, we haven't gotten older lists. We have lists from the last budget, and now this upcoming budget will generate a new list. So there's definitely work to be done on the tracking side. We have to think about how we do that more meaningfully. If there are projects that you're specifically interested in and you'd like for us to update or give a status report on, we're happy to do that. And Kiana's on the call. She can follow up on specifics. There's so much that we're kind of digging through because, as you know, the city council allocates money through many different pots. So we have our local pot, our youth pot, but then there's also the initiatives. There's many green initiatives and initiatives that fall under culture. There's also the speakers money that is allocated through a different pot, and the delegations, the borough delegation money comes from a different pot, as well as the BLAC, the Black Latino Asian Caucus, which I'm a part of, also has. So there's a lot of different ways to track the money and where expense money is coming from. If you give us a little bit of guidance, we're happy to, share what we have.
Great. I will be in touch with you guys.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions / comments. One is to just, for you to keep in mind, I know you know, but I feel it bears repeating for the public record that Community District 12 is like 40-something% parkland. So we have more parkland than any other board, and you have, I'm gonna guess, more parkland than any other council person's district as a percentage of your net assignable square mileage of district. In a time when global warming is as much of an issue as it is, the whole water reclamation, permeability, that whole relationship between green space and environmental integrity, super important. And again, it's one of those like not really sexy funding priorities that people don't think about until it's a disaster. So, that I feel is really ripe for borough funding, because we do have so much parkland. I also think I wouldn't be doing my job as the chair of the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee if I didn't also echo that cultural affairs is part of our name. We have the only, we have a really important museum. You heard from Alexander earlier. We have a wealth of cultural resources. Years ago, we used to have an event called Uptown Treasures. It was a wonderful collaboration for either a day or a weekend, where the Hispanic Society, Arts and Letters, the Jumel Mansion, the Dykeman Farmhouse, the Track and
Parks
Field Hall
Department.
of Fame, the Parks Department, of course, the Heather Garden, the Cloisters. There were all of these special programs at the various venues. And the senior centers kicked in supporting this with buses. People had a hop on, hop off bus and free admission into these various venues. It was usually in the fall. It was an incredible celebration of our real wealth of uptown cultural resources. It was a lot of fun. That's not a small ask, but I would love to see that come back.
I feel like I heard that conversation was happening. Right? It's
That would
happening.
be
That
dope.
conversation is happening. And I think one thing that I would love to see, and I don't know how feasible this is, but this is me dreaming here out loud, is like having like a little trolley or something that connects people to the different, stops or something like that, and we could market it. I mean, I think one of the things that the city has not done well, especially through New York and Company, is really market our community in a way where like the residents of this community can take advantage of what's here and wayfind in a way that makes sense, and also connect these cultural resources. So this conversation about Uptown Treasures is happening.
Fantastic.
And I'm hoping that I can support it as well. So
I just love that. That makes me very happy. I also shout out to Congressmember Espaillat and to Senator Jackson, both of whom have their offices very well decorated with the work of local artists. I don't know what your office looks like, but I do hope that
Stay
you-
tuned.
Fantastic.
We're having a gut rehab over there.
Fantastic. So I look forward to seeing your office hopefully adorned with the work of our local artists. Before I go to Barbara, who I see has her hand raised, I'm not sure if we've got Rosa Yolanda back, so I just want to read her question, which was, is the Raul Wallenberg Playground allocated for capital improvement funds? So that's either a question for Jennifer if it is, or for Carmen if it isn't, to talk about where that sits in the priorities.
It has not received city capital funding.
Yeah, I have it on my list. It's something that we talked about just yesterday. I know that the stairway, I was told, needs significant repair. And I know the ball field, I actually thought it had been done, which was a surprise to know that it hasn't. So we will be looking at that, and it'll be a part of our priorities.
Great, thank you so much. Alexander Campos.
Hi, good to see you again, Councilwoman. I just want to reiterate, I want to know more about your task force, because again, there are those few organizations that are part of Community Board 12, but sit right outside of your district and are in a different district, like 7. And of course, most of our audience, local audience, is from above us, your district, Inwood, Washington Heights, though we're officially in Washington Heights, just at the edge. I was going to know if your strategic planning for Uptown includes those peripheral areas outside your district. Is it going to focus just on your council district? Because there's so many culture organizations right at 155th or right below your district, and which are serving, of course, the District 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be presumptuous of me to try and, sneak into Sean's district, but the good news is that Sean and I have a great relationship. I think we can work well together. We have already been talking about the delegation funding to make sure that the entirety of Community Board 12 is encompassed in that. And I know that your organization is very, very valuable to our community. And I know that the former council member also supported the work that was happening. So we will continue to support it. And always there's an open door for conversations on how we can collaborate. So we'll work together.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Barbara.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the idea of the trolley. In the first couple Uptown Treasures, which really evolved into the Uptown Arts Festival, we did have a trolley, and I wrote it myself. I wrote it myself, and we had little flyers that told us what was happening at the different 5 or 6 different places that were not a trolley, but a van, a bus that took us to the different places. And that really helped get the momentum going and connecting Washington Heights and Inwood as one venue. And it was really quite effective. I would also suggest when we do this, it was done like October, early October, that the major playgrounds be included and that there be live performances, because we have folkloric, we have at the Dominican Cultural Center, we have a folkloric dance group, we have musicians that play in the Ann Loftus Playground, and various things like that. So I would certainly hope that the Loftus Playground, the Raul Wallenberg Playground and such would be focuses for live performance during such a, maybe not trolley, but bus type place venue that would go around and make a circuit. And when we did do that years ago, I mean, Liz, I hate to say how many years ago it was. You were here at the time. It was very, very successful. And people had their little, palm cards, so to speak, a little bit bigger than a palm card, 5 by 8, and followed it for the afternoon and had a great time. And we're amazed, like, wow, there's all this uptown, And of course, now it's an explosion compared to what it was back then. It's an explosion. People don't know what we fought to build. So anyways, just my 2 cents on that, live performance. And we did once have that.
I love that idea. It would take a while to put that all together, but that sounds like an absolute blast. And I will say that maybe some of the most fun I've ever had was being a tour guide on one of those buses. I was a tour guide too. On my trivia and to have like a running pattern to talk about the different cultural sites and events. We did Margaret Corbin history. We did Dykeman House history, all that. Yes. That was all made the trips around very entertaining. We had questions prepared. Yes. That was really fantastic. So, so if there's any what was that, 88, 80, 90, something like that? It was the 80s. It was 80s. It was the 80s and into the 90s, because at some point when they ended, my kids were small. So I don't see any additional questions.
The other thing I would add, Liz, if I may, just one thing that I didn't mention in my opening was the historic mansions. They're on my radar. There's a lot of work needed and a lot of investment needed and a lot of work happening at both Morris Jumel and the Dykeman Farmhouse. And I think it's important, those are important areas in our community, but it's on my radar. I wanted to mention that.
So then, speaking of historic houses, not technically a house, but part of the Historic House Trust would be the Little Red Lighthouse, which is desperately in need of a renovation. Again, it's in Community Board 12. So it's, Community Board 12's problem, but it is the only lighthouse in Manhattan. And it is a unique piece of Manhattan's history. So that feels like not an unreasonable ask to the borough president, the borough delegation, the speaker. There's this, that would be great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us so much of your time. The door is always open. The Zoom door is always open. We welcome you to come back, although I understand obviously you're a busy woman. You can't come to every community board meeting, but I appreciate your willingness to meet with us at the beginning of your term. And I really look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I'll be back with updates after the budget and all of that. And, just keep me posted if anything happens. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much, Kiana. We look forward to working with you too. And I think Edda's cat gets the last word. All right. I think we don't have any additional, we don't have any old business. I'm not seeing any hands for new business. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I can't do it without Daryl here. It's not mine anymore.
I just have a quick thing to our attendees. Community board applications are due March 1st. I would encourage as many of you as have the time to apply to our community boards. And the application is on Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine's website. So please consider joining us.
And that's also for people that are currently members that need to reapply. So if you're on this committee and you're here for this is your second term, you need to reapply. Cool.
All righty.
I second the motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much. Well, wait a minute. I think you're
It
making
wasn't even
the motion
called.
to
So
adjourn.
Barbara, do you want to call it? And I'll
Okay,
second?
I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Fantastic. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.